So hello, everybody. My name is Casey Lamelli, and I'm one of the co-founders of Unfiltered San Antonio.
And I'm the other half, Adelia Sophia Zacharias. We co-founded Unfiltered San Antonio, Unfiltered SA for short, in 2018. And we're very excited to be here today with you all. Mm-hmm. And we're just thinking of kicking it off with introductions. Sarah, if you want to start the intros.
Sure, I am Sara Corley Martinez, and I am an artist out of San Antonio. I've been in San Antonio for 5 years now, and I just joined Clam Play, where the show is, about 8 months ago. Oh, Heather's here. Okay, so good. We can get her introduction as well. Before that, I'm originally from Maryland. I got my MFA from the University of Cincinnati. And yeah, I used to make work about the body, and now I make work about motherhood and motherhood adjacent stuff. So that's me.
Great. Alison, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name's Alison. I am an artist based out of the LA area. I've also been there for about 5 years. And before that, I was in New York. I got my MFA at Parsons. And I make work mostly in video and photography, although there are sculptures in the show, which is kind of like my new dipping my toes into something. And yeah, my work is primarily about my relationships with the people that are closest to me and my family. Usually it ends up being my family. And most recently it's been about motherhood and my relationship with my children. So.
Katherine, do you want to take it? Wait. Oh, you're muted.
Okay. My name is Katherine Duclos, and I live in Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm currently making work centered around mothering with sort of a focus on breastfeeding and pumping milk and the invisible labor and emotional toll and burden that sustaining a life with your body comes along with. Yeah, and it's multimedia. I'm doing sculpture, installation, paintings. So it's been a big shift in my work in the last year or so. Very happy to be in the show with these amazing women.
Great. Olivia?
Sure, I'm Olivia Phare. I go by Liv. I work in a variety of mediums, but it ends up in a photograph. So if it's sculpture, it's going to be photographed. And it's my brain totally just skipped completely. But anyways, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I work in photography. My work is typically autobiographical as a means of exploring larger concepts around how our culture and systems are set up. But for the most part, it ends up in these very intimate windows into those ideas.
And Heather.
Yeah, Heather, are you there? We might have to come back to Heather.
Can you hear me?
Oh, wait, here she is.
Okay. Am I coming through?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I was just popping on my friend's Wi-Fi. We're on a road trip, and so I'm like, it's 1 o'clock. So I'm Heather. I'm based out of Boulder, Colorado. I work mostly in textiles at the intersection of language, communication, digital, and analog. So that ends up happening in a lot of different ways, whether it's taking digital formats and translating them into analog materials or vice versa. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And I just want to say one of my favorite things about this show is that since you all met in such a unique way, you're kind of spread all over the place. You're not just, you know, local to San Antonio or even to Texas. And like we mentioned at the beginning, Unfiltered is really focused on San Antonio. So it's really great to have some non-San Antonio artists in a San Antonio show so we can, you know, meet new artists, and especially I know Delia and myself love working with other women, so we're really excited about the show and about the talk. And to kick us off, can you talk a little bit more, and this is you know, informal, we'll just be jumping around, so if you want to answer, just go ahead and pop in your answer. We're probably not necessarily going to be addressing a single artist, so feel free to pipe in whenever. We want you, you know, whoever feels comfortable to talk about what brought you all together, right? You met through the Artist Mother Network seasonal critique group. So how did that come? How did that relationship form through that group?
Yeah, I can start. So the Artist Mother podcast has a critique group, and what it's been, some of you guys might know better, it's been going on for what, 2 years? I know that this critique group I was in is the second round of critiques I was in. I had another critique group the spring before, like right when we started quarantining, and I had a really good experience, so I did it again. And this is the wonderful group I met through that round of critique. And basically all of us got together about once a week under the mentorship of Sarah Sudoff, who's out of Houston, who has a video piece in the show as well. And we got together and talked about our work each week and professional practices and some community stuff too. So it was a good experience.
Awesome. It sounds like a really uplifting opportunity, especially, you know, during a time when we're all very separate. And I think, you know, definitely don't get as much interaction as we used to. And Delia, I know you had a question for the group kind of centered around the network they were in.
Yeah, and within this seasonal critique group, how has your relationship with critique changed and shifted, you know, as we've experienced the last year in quarantine, and how our relationships with ourselves and our own identities through this time has shifted?
I can pop in on that for a minute. So I had done a critique group locally, I think it was fall, winter, right before COVID. And having that experience and then transitioning into digital cultures was really interesting. In some ways it was frustrating because, you know, work just doesn't read the same on a screen. You can only blow it up so much to get without losing the sense of the overall piece. You can't move, you know, forwards and backwards in space. But at the same time, we had time to like think about what we were looking at, which you don't necessarily always get in an in-person critique. That time is usually condensed into a certain amount of, you know, hours or whatever. But especially as mothers, it's really nice to be able to pop in and like look at something, think about it, write about it. Everybody, you know, contributed to Google Docs that were shared, and you just had time and space to come to it when it worked for you. And so it was much more flexible that way, which was really great. And it also, I mean, just allowed more time to like initial reaction. Now I've thought about it for a while, and now I'm coming back around, and now we're having the discussion about it. And it just brings up a whole different set of flavors that you don't necessarily always get in a in-person critique. So it's like, you know, the pluses and minuses.
Yeah, it was definitely really nice to be in a group with mothers, because I think sometimes work about motherhood can be kind of like taboo in certain circles, or are not taken as seriously. And I think when you look at the work in the show, the women who are represented there are all very serious about their craft, but sometimes the topics don't translate to people who don't have the experiences, which is a great, I mean, it's a whole nother conversation about how motherhood is perceived in our culture, but it was really wonderful to be in a group where there was a lot of mutual respect and a lot of grace for like, oh, hey, my kid is sobbing one moment. You know, there's a lot of room to say, hold on, and for people to understand it.
Right.
And I think piggybacking off of what Heather said, the format, you know, you do miss being able to see things in person. I think especially like Sara Corley, Sara Sudoff, and I all have video work, but I think especially Katherine and Heather's work benefits from being seen in person. And I'm so sad I haven't seen it in person yet, but the method of like being able to share via Google Drive, so everybody was like uploading their work and sending comments in, is useful. And I actually am working with somebody right now to work on a photography critique group that will be digital, and I'm excited to be able to bring in these tools over there.
Mm-hmm. That's really great. And I think that kind of leads to my next question, and it really has to do with the artist statement, the exhibition statement, which said, you know, all the work in the exhibition speaks to what we hold on to when we can't let go. And I was hoping that you all can elaborate on that and really get into, you know, what was the starting point for the exhibition, other than, you know, just being the fact that you were all brought together in this network. And then did that develop over time as you were kind of working on the project together?
I'll jump in. I think from the beginning of the Crick Group, like our work is all very different, but there is a connection to the body and to like the spaces between bodies and our relationship to ourselves and our identities, both as women and mothers. And I think it was sort of, I wouldn't say it was easy to kind of envision a show, but I think that, you know, Sarah's idea of like, hey, I have this space and like, why not? I think we were all just excited to kind of put it together and see it in a room, even though, well, Sarah's the only one that can actually see it in a room. But I think, you know, the theme of can't let go, all of us approach it from a different angle. And so even though the work is really different, I think it, you know, creates dialogue of the different directions that we're coming from. Like my work, my paintings have breast milk in them, and that breast milk was donated by women who'd kept it in their freezer for years after their babies had stopped needing it. And it was expired. And I collected it from so many women, and almost all of them said, I don't know why I've been holding on to this. It, like, they were apologetic about it. They felt sort of ashamed and they had to justify it to me or apologize. And they thought they were alone in doing that. Like it was some weird quirk. And it turns out so many women do it, but we don't talk about it. And so women don't know that they're not the only ones holding on to this experience, that they just, you know, breastfeeding is fleeting. It's like something you do and then it's done and you don't get room to process it. And so I think a lot of women hold on to those feelings and that experience. And when we hold on to things, it can be, you know, sort of a trying to remember and a closeness and fond kind of holding on, but it can also be like a weight and a burden that we carry that we just can't shed even though we want to. And so I think some other like work presented kind of deals more with that, but I think it was, I don't know, other people can jump in, but I think all the work like speaks to it from different angles.
Right. I think it's really interesting how you talk about the use of, like you said, breast milk in your work and how women hold on to it kind of unconsciously. Because I feel like you know, my full-time job is in communications. And so I'm online a lot and really trying to stay on top of like social media and just like, you know, that kind of world. And I've noticed it pop up a few times in my like feed, whether I'm just like scrolling randomly or, you know, whatnot, cases where somebody has turned someone's breast milk, like that they can send in and turned it into like something that they can keep. Yeah, like a necklace, or I forget, that's the one that's really sticking with me, but I saw even something else and I was like, this is really interesting. Like I've never seen this before. Like you said, it's not something that is talked about, even if it's something like, oh, I'm turning this into something that people can hold on to, or women can hold on to. So that's really, really fascinating to me. And does anybody else want to speak to what their artwork, you know, kind of, I guess, holds on to?